Good morning, USA, and welcome to another episode of the Bernie or Bust Show, unshaved, unbathed, unedited, and unscripted. Today we're talking about the Russiagate conspiracy, and Crystal Ball gets a little bit of flack from Jimmy Dore.
Just how much damage has MSNBC in particular done to the left?
So this is what I've been saying about people. She's talking about people who push Russiagate at the top of their lungs breathlessly for the last 3 years. How much damage have they actually done? People don't realize that people pushing Russiagate are actually damaging the left and propping Trump up. And even after I've told those people, guess what? They still fucking do it. Isn't that something? Even though I've said it, she's saying it, lots of other people have said Russiagate is a helping Trump, they still won't stop it.
And his point that he doesn't actually spell out, he's smiling there. I think he thinks we're in on the joke. And I think that he's trying to tell us that the reason they don't care is because they're okay with Trump. The very center of the DNC, the third way think tank people especially, and the Hollywood people and all the other parts of this cabal that I've talked about over the last few weeks, are in on it, and they don't care. They're all right with Trump. They'd much rather have Trump than an existential threat to the gravy train that they're all on. All right, he's gonna say some things. Now, Crystal, I told you yesterday, is my favorite commentator right now, but Jimmy, he's got to be right in the running. And what I like about Jimmy this morning is that he is, even though he says he's a fan of Crystal, like I am, he says that she's genuflecting to some unproven things about Russiagate, even while she's debunking it.
And I say to those news outlets, thank you for leaving such a huge lane for me.
This critique is not meant to be personal to the anchors and the commentators there, many of whom I know, some of whom are actually close friends, having worked at that network for 5 years.
I know you don't mean it to be personal, but there's no other way they're going to take it.
Oh, I haven't seen this yet.
Good luck.
But nearly all of whom got swept up in the ratings bubble that was feverish Russian conspiracy theories. At MSNBC, as in all things, systems and incentives are far more important for analyzing any particular situation than individual personalities. However, I dare to say, some talent did drink more deeply of the Russia conspiracy waters than others. Rachel Maddow, you've got some explaining to do. Now look, I am not like a Glenn.
She's never going to explain anything, and she doesn't have any price to pay for that. In fact, I bet she gets a raise. She's not going to pay any. Rachel Maddow's not paying any price. She's got no. She's never going to explain anything. That's how journalism works. It's called herd mentality.
And Crystal, what if the heat in your house just went poof? What are you going to do then? Still going to make these videos? What if it just went poof?
Yeah.
And Russia did it.
What if Russia turns off the heat to your house, Crystal?
The part they really need to talk about is the herd mentality. Crystal talks about that a lot, and she's not. I think she's right when she says that they're not actually giving orders directly to the reporters, but there's this herd mentality that comes into play, and elitism. And if you go back and watch, Crystal has 3, maybe 4 shows just about that, just about the mentality of the commentators who get swept up in their incentives, the way they're incentivized, and also in the way the way they talk to each other about it, and that they're out of touch with real, regular, working class people.
Greenwald, who thinks this was all ridiculous.
Okay, so here's the bad part.
Yeah.
Here's the part where she loses the plot. Just for a little bit. Watch this.
Now look, I am not like a Glenn Greenwald who thinks this was all ridiculous.
Glenn Greenwald is to me the primary voice who's digging into the facts and telling the absolute truth about all this. Jimmy reports on everything he finds, but Glenn Greenwald is a bulldog, really, if you think about it, in the way he looks at, the way he digs in, the way he goes into the story and finds the actual facts about this stuff.
The Trump campaign did nothing nefarious vis-a-vis Russia. The president's team clearly sought to work with Russia.
So that's just some blanket assertion she puts out about Glenn. She doesn't specifically say what you disagree with about Glenn. She just talks in broad generalities. Watch this. It's kind of bullshit. But this is what I mean. She has to first genuflect at the altar of Russiagate before she can go on and debunk it.
Now, look, I am not like a Glenn Greenwald who thinks this was all ridiculous and that the Trump campaign did nothing nefarious vis-a-vis Russia. The president's team clearly sought to work with Russia. They used Russian illegal activity to their own benefit, and then they lied about the whole mess to try to cover it up.
And that's why nobody was indicted. That's why after...
Basically, what she just said is not supportable. It's just not true. Those 4 statements she just made there, they're just simply not true. There's not a shred of evidence to support those assertions.
2 investigations, 22 months by Mueller, not a fucking shred of evidence to support anything you just said. Isn't that weird? She's about to fucking wag her finger at people for covering Russiagate poorly and hyping it. And before she does it, she has to first affirm that Russiagate's real, even though it's not. Isn't that weird?
Those were the 3 Hail Marys, dude.
And nobody else except Jimmy that I've noticed is that blunt about it, is that truthful about it.
I mean, that's like the perfect way to put it. You have to genuflect.
Yeah.
At the altar of Russiagate.
She just makes broad generality. They clearly, if it was so goddamn clear, why isn't there one goddamn indictment about it? Not one. Not one person from not Trump, and they had remember, they had a tap on everyone's phone. They had a FISA warrant on Carter Page. They had everybody. They've got not one person. And Mueller admitted as much. That's in the report. No one was charged. So if it's clear, we just gosh darn it, Trump and his campaign, they're so illegal and they're such morons, yet they outsmarted the entire FBI and the CIA. But we know they did it. That's what she's...
Well, you can't wag your finger at Rachel Maddow.
Right.
And then
fucking
throw
do
Glenn
it.
Greenwald under the bus. I mean, that's really like a collision of ideas. And now, so what's your thesis here?
Yeah.
Like, what's your point?
Well, she first has to genuflect to Russiagate. She can't just go, of course this was bullshit. Of course this was made up. Did you watch the Mueller here?
The other person who does that blatantly is Cenk Uygur. And I just keep waiting for Jimmy to call him on the carpet for similar stuff. I asked to be on the Jimmy Dore show about Bernie or Bust, and I hope he'll have me on there. But it would be tempting if I am ever in his garage on this show. It would be tempting to bring up Cenk. I would like. There are a few bones to pick I have about Cenk and how Jimmy doesn't always just wade right in there and let him have it.
Hearings? Did you watch? He didn't even interview Julian Assange. He didn't interview the guy who started this whole thing, who told Papadopoulos. He didn't do anything.
Activity to their own benefit, and then they lied about the whole mess to try to cover it up.
What then? So if that's all true, where is the proof for that? Where's your evidence? Why don't you write a fucking Pulitzer Prize winning article that proves all that shit? Because you can't write it because there isn't any proof of it. All right, so now I'll let this go, and now we'll get on to her critique of MSNBC.
Those are the facts, and it is a damning set of facts. But it does not feel like a damning set of facts when for months MSNBC built segment after segment, show after show on building anticipation for a big reveal when we would learn the true depths of Trump's fealty and direct conspiracy with Putin. In some of the most fevered speculation, primetime shows actually invited Jonathan Chait on to lay out his wild theory that Trump had actually been a Russian asset since 1987. Chait starts out his analysis, I watched this back last night, by acknowledging that Trump, as multi-decade-long Russian asset, is, quote, probably not true, but it might be. Characters like conspiracy gadfly Louise Mensch were invited on. Mensch, through her Twitter account, often, quote-unquote, reported things like the notion that Steve Bannon was getting the death penalty for espionage. They had this person on MSNBC. Serious.
I know. I feel the same way. And lots of YouTubers also bring her on their show and treat her credibly.
Yeah.
There you go. Crystal Ball also sees the ridiculousness of this woman and how she's been propped up by the people pushing Russiagate. And of course, she's welcome on MSNBC, and Glenn Greenwald isn't, and
Right.
Aaron Matei isn't, and Kyle Kalinske isn't, and Jordan Chariton is.
Jordan Chariton, Kyle Kalinske, Aaron Matei, and Glenn Greenwald. He just listed people that we all should be watching, we all should be supporting. That little moment right there, he just said it in passing, but that is maybe the most important part of this episode, is that those are the people we should be supporting. And the only way we're going to get around the blockade, that's the MSNBC, CNN blockade, is to, or New York Times or Washington Post, all the other owned media outlets that they like to complain about. We have to push forward the true voices who are have never lost their bearings in all of this batshit crazy stuff. So keep those guys in, and Crystal too. I don't think he's throwing her away. I think, and put Crystal right up there with all of them. She's been doing a great job. I want to make sure everyone knows that, even though she had a little lost the plot for a moment. He said,
Isn't. And anybody else who's been debunking Russiagate, not allowed on. But guess who is? Someone who compares conspiracy theories like this.
This is not journalism. It is InfoWars conspiracy theory.
It's exactly what they've been doing, which is
Wow.
why it's funny. Now when you watch those shows that push Russiagate at the top of their lungs and they try to still wag their finger at someone like Alex Jones or anybody else, it seems so silly. It rings so hollow. Can you imagine Rachel Maddow trying to call someone else a conspiracy theorist?
yeah, right.
And look what she has in her graphic. It says, Crystal Ball on my radar, NBC News, InfoWars. She's going right at him.
Mm-hmm.
She's going right at him. So when does MSNBC lose their YouTube channel? When does MSNBC lose their Twitter account?
Right.
When does MSNBC lose their Facebook page? Oh, never?
Never.
Because they're the establishment?
Right.
Now, CNN and many other outlets are also clearly not blameless in this hype machine, and the Democratic Party was plenty happy to engage in this speculation, as well as Sagar just pointed out. Individual members clearly loved that sweet cable news spotlight, but I single out my former employer in particular, in part because they were certainly the worst mainstream offenders, and also to dispel this public perception that MSNBC is on Team D in the same way that Fox News is on Team R. They're not.
Okay, that's another word. I don't know why you used to feel like you have to say that.
I think
That's
so
not
too.
true. They're on Team D.
They are.
What? What?
Clearly.
So there's two mistakes she makes in this, but everything else is pretty good.
Look, like most corporate entities, MSNBC is a die-hard member of the Green Party, and I'm obviously not talking about climate change here. Russia Conspiracy was great for ratings among the key demographic of empty nesters on the coast with too much time on their hands. Consider this whole setup has done more damage to the Democrats' chances of winning back the White House than anything.
Right.
That is the key point.
Right.
That this nonstop Russiagate has done more to prop Trump up and ensure his reelection than anything else. I mean,
That's the point I wanted you to get. And who are the true lefty reporters who are going to help us keep our bearings, because Trump and his team love to wave shiny objects, but it isn't just the red team that's waving shiny objects. Obviously, the blue team has been doing the same. And what he didn't come right out and say, I will. I think they don't care. Either blue team or red team don't care about really if Trump wins. I think they'd much rather have Trump than Bernie or Tulsi, for that matter. So hold that thought. Keep sharing broadly the true things you find, as long as they keep allowing us to do it. And keep on burning.